What's up, everybody? Hope everybody's having a good summer school session, staying on task. Good job to everybody that's been sticking with it. I know it's kind of frustrating using some of the activities and GeoGebra, and some of the material can be a little bit confusing, but you're almost done. Okay, so the purpose of this video is to show you how to do the trig functions using the calculator that's built into Edmentum, right? So if you've never looked on the left-hand side, you have this calculator built in. Now, if you have a scientific calculator at home, you can message me and I can kind of walk you through how to do that. But this is going to be how to use trig to solve using the built-in calculator in Edmentum. So there's 3 activities within the tutorial for right triangle trig and Pythagorean theorem. I'm not going to go over how to do those that much because hopefully by now you have a pretty good grasp of all the tools that you can use in GeoGebra. Now, what I want you to do is, if you haven't watched these 2 videos right here, I want you to pause this video right now and watch those 2, because I'm going to show you how to do these problems using this calculator. But if you haven't watched these 2 videos, then you won't understand what these equations mean. So once again, pause this video, watch these 2, watch this one first, and then watch this one. All right? Then come back to this video and I'll show you how to do these problems. Okay? So here we go. Now with trig functions, right, you've got your sine, cosine, and tangent. Which one you use determines on what sides you are given. All right? For these 2 top problems, I know an angle and I know one side, either the 30 and the 25. For this problem down here, I know 2 sides and I'm trying to find an angle. So this right here would be an inverse problem, and these 2 here are normal trig problems. Now, the key to doing these is you want to wait till the end to do any types of calculations, and I'll show you exactly what I mean by that. Okay, so again, this is just walking you through how to use this calculator over here, because it's a different order than if you had like a Texas Instrument like TI-83 or something like that. Okay, so let's say after you've watched both of these videos, okay, you're going through a problem and you get your problem set up towards sine 57 equals x over 30. So the goal is to get x by itself before we do any type of calculation. So in this case, I would multiply both sides by 30, right? So that means I would get x equals the sine of 57 times 30. Okay, so the sine of 57 times 30. So x is going to equal whatever these 2 things multiplied together is. Now, when you go to your calculator, all right, the way that you input this matters. So you always want to put in the number that doesn't have the trig function attached to it first. So 30. So remember, it's 30 times sine 57. So the 30, I'm putting that first because it doesn't have the trig function attached to it. So 30 times 57. Now it's sine 57, but you have to enter in 57 first, because when I click the sine function, these are our trig, but you're going to be using these 6 buttons down here. Make sure that this is clicked, by the way, degrees. So sine 30 times the sine of 57 is 30. Once again, that order, 30 times 57. You don't hit equals yet. You hit sine. So that is the value, the decimal value of the sine of 57. So what we're doing is we're doing 30 times this amount. So now if I hit equals, That's what the result is of doing 30 times the sine of 57. So one more time, 30 times 57 sine. So again, remember, that is what the value of the sine of 57 is, equals. So my answer is 25.2. You can just round. I don't know what they ask you to round to in the activities, but I usually just have students round to the tenths place, okay? So again, my answer for this is 25.2. So x equals 25.2, all right? Now notice I'm choosing to do this one differently down here because the x was in the numerator here. Here it's in the denominator, all right? So again, what do we need to do? Now here's a little trick, guys. Anytime your x is in the denominator, what you can do is exchange it with what's over here. So that means x equals 25 divided by the cosine of 42. Okay. So since our x is now by itself, we now can go to use our calculator. All right. So 25 divided by cosine 42. So here we go. 25 divided by 42 cosine equals. Okay, because remember, we have to enter in the numeric value of the angle before we click the sine, cosine, or tangent button. So guys, these are generic examples. You're only going to have pretty much 3 scenarios, right? You're going to have the side I'm trying to solve for is in the numerator, the side I'm trying to solve for is in the denominator, or I'm trying to solve for an angle measure. Those are the only 3 scenarios you're going to have when we're doing trig stuff. So this example can be used with tangent or cosine. This one can be used with tangent or sine. And this idea can be used with sine and cosine inverses. Okay, so 25 divided by cosine 42. 25 divided by 42 cosine equals. So our answer is 33.6. So that missing side, x equals 33.6. Okay. And then finally, we have problems where we have to use the inverse. So again, this is a separate video. There's a separate video on how to solve using trig for side lengths. And there's also a video I linked on YouTube for how to solve for missing angles using trig, because you have to use what's called the inverse function. Now, if I look over here, this second row, a sine, a cosine, those are your inverse functions. Normally it's sine to the -1, right? Or cosine to the -1, or tangent to the -1. Like, so if you have a calculator, it would usually say like sine, and then there's a little -1 power at the top. But for some reason, this calculator doesn't have it. So when I'm going to try to find a missing angle, these are the buttons that I'm using. All right. So let's go back to this. So tangent x equals 4 divided by 7. Well, x is already kind of by itself. All right. So technically what this means now is that the inverse tangent of x. So inverse tangent, so it looks something like this. -1 x equals 4 divided by 7. Okay, so the inverse, so that's all we have. So you don't really have to do any rearranging of the fraction when a problem like this. Okay, so here's how I'm going to perform this operation in my calculator. I'm going to do 4 divided by 7. I'm going to hit equals. So what that decimal is that's the decimal value for the ratio for that inverse amount. So all I have to do now is press this button right here to get my answer. Okay, so once again, just 4 divided by 7 equals, and I'm going to take the inverse tangent of this amount, because remember, 4 divided by 7, that's a decimal. That's what this value is right here. So I have to take the inverse amount of this, and all I have to do is press this one here. So my answer for my missing angle is 29.7. So x equals 29.7 degrees. And that's it, okay? Trig is usually kind of hard in the beginning for people to wrap their heads around, But once you understand the SOHCAHTOA, how to set up the ratio, it really is pretty easy. Okay, so I will say this also, guys, the tutorial makes this way harder than it needs to be. So don't feel like you need to stress super hard on the activity parts of it. Understand the concepts I'm showing you right here and what those 2 videos on YouTube are showing, and you should be really good. Okay, please let me know if you have any questions. You can rewatch this. You can reach out to me in on Remind. But almost done, guys. Here we go.